Support and resistance levels. These are two basic tools that every trader must know. It seems like a very simple topic, but in reality, many beginners get confused and lost in it, and they actually don't understand what a fundamental and powerful tool it is. In fact, that's exactly what it is. So watch this video carefully. We'll go over the basic parameters, specifically the levels, and you'll be able to take your trading to a whole new level. Let's get to the video. We have several different ways to work with price levels in trading. Look, the very first, and actually the simplest, most basic way, is to just mark a price value, meaning a specific price point. Like here, for instance, 2.00710. This is a price level where both buyers and sellers have an interest. In other words, sellers do not want the price to move above this level, while buyers are interested in keeping it below. To fall, and buyers don't want the price to rise. And accordingly, this is where the real battle begins. So there's a very intense struggle here, and that's where we can make money. That is, when the price reaches this level, we can enter a trade in the opposite direction. In other words, a bounce off the price level, which is actually pretty simple in our current market conditions, and any trader can replicate this strategy. That's why I recommend you look at levels simply as a tool. I'm not saying it's a completely independent tool, but we can use it in strategies, and at the very least we can understand the mechanics. So roughly speaking, let's say we have an upward movement. You want to open a trade with a trend, but you realize there's a level here. Accordingly, most likely, it would be very risky for us to open a buy trade here. That's why we'll either skip this situation or we'll open a trade on. Let's take a look at how these levels are built, and then we'll go over them. We'll go into more detail about ready-made strategies using levels, and then you'll be able to try all of this out in practice. In order to properly and accurately draw a level, we need to have at least 2 touches on the chart. In other words, just 2 touches at the same price level are enough to give us the understanding and confirmation that this is indeed a significant level. Look, for example, let's mark this level here. So we can see that at this moment, there was a reaction here, and there was another reaction here. How can we work from this level going forward? In other words, we don't have confirmation yet. We have the formation and understanding that this is indeed a price level from which we can consistently work. Accordingly, the third touch will serve as confirmation, and on the 4th, 5th, 6th, and subsequent touches, we can open trades in the opposite direction. So if we see that the price has dropped somewhere and then comes back to this level, we understand that there's a big player here, say a major buyer or seller, and it's not in their interest for the price to go higher. They will put as much pressure on the price as possible to push it down. So we can enter trades with you from 3, sometimes up to 10 or even 15 times in the same direction. In other words, a big player just isn't letting us go any further. That's exactly what's happening here. It's a good sign when, for example, we want to enter right here on an uptrend. It might seem like the right move, but in the moment, things just aren't going our way. That's why this tool is actually really convenient to use. And remember, 2 touches form the level itself, and the third touch confirms it. So you find 2 touches, then you wait. Wait until the price touches this level for the 3rd time, and then that level will be confirmed. 3 touches make a solid level. Got it. Let's move on. Also, let me remind you that in our Telegram channel, you'll find more educational content, as well as ready-made strategies and indicators. Let's just take a closer look at the impressive results from our valued members, who are simply part of our exclusive channel. So they use our convenient ready-made tools and consistently make money in the financial market. We don't give out any complicated tools, we introduce them gradually. So if we see that someone is ready for the next level, then we're ready to offer them more interesting tools. That's why you can learn at a completely basic level and then move on to professional large-scale trading. I'll leave a link to our Telegram channel in the description. Be sure to subscribe so you stay up to date with all the news and everything happening in trading. And here's how you can make money here. Let's move on. Now here's a full-fledged strategy. Look, together we'll mark this level right here. Let's mark it right here. Why is this a level? First of all, look, a level doesn't have to be an exact price point. It can look like this. In other words, you can use a whole range. And here we can observe this together. At this moment, we had 1 touch, 2 touches, 3 touches. So we already have confirmation. So starting from the 4th touch, we can enter a buy position with you, meaning a bounce off the level. On top of that, I added the RSI indicator, which shows me a reversal. So on the RSI, as I'll show you later, all these reversals that are at the top and bottom, those are price reversals, where we can catch a move. That's a really nice impulse move. After this trade, I'll show you how to work with this indicator, how to trade reversals, and of course, how you can catch some pretty interesting trades. As you can see, I just made $600, so let's figure out how to actually use the RSI. We add the RSI indicator to the chart, but by default, it looks different. We go into the settings, set the period to 8, and save everything. And here we have a button to expand. Let's expand our indicator, and now take a look. The RSI indicator itself shows overbought and oversold conditions. In other words, we're talking about buyers and sellers again. So here's the deal. When the RSI indicator is above 70, it means that buyers are really dominating the market. Basically, they've overdone it in the moment, and you can see that from these peaks. So as a result, the price should reverse. So after these kinds of breakouts, the price makes a downward move in the opposite direction. When the price drops below 30, it means we're in the oversold zone. And because of these moments, that's exactly when the price starts to go up. We can clearly see this from these downward points right here. And right now, we had the exact same situation. So the price comes in, and accordingly, we enter here for a reversal. But as an additional confirmation, something that increases our chances is our level. That's why you can use the level together with the RSI, and this will be a pretty interesting, ready-to-use strategy that will bring you results. Consistent results. By the way, here's another interesting option we can point out. This is a whole range. So these are 2 levels that are very close to each other, and together they form this kind of block. We can also open a buy trade here, since the price has received a significant enough impulse that will likely give us a reaction. And look, we have a level above and we have a level below. But when we have 2 levels in a row, we can mark them as a range like this. And as you can see on the charts here, this is a clear example of how these levels interact. The price often gets stuck there, and when it comes back to it, it's actually harder for the price to break through such a range in the moment than just a single line, in fact. That's why we're looking at the RSI indicator. It's below 30, so we can confidently enter on the rebound and accordingly catch a nice impulse like this. By the way, regarding the settings, we use candles from 30 seconds, regular Japanese candlesticks, and we trade from 1 to 3 minutes. The higher the candle time, for example 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, the stronger the candle itself will be. So pay attention to that as well. By the way, if you don't want to do any analysis, then right now, you can follow the link in the description and activate our robot. This robot does the analysis for you, meaning you just request a currency pair from it, specify the trade time, and it analyzes everything for you. All you need to do is copy the signal, apply it on the platform with the right currency pair, and collect your profit. So it's even easier. It's kind of an alternative for beginners, which is why I'll leave the link to the robot in the description. Go ahead and trade with artificial intelligence. It delivers pretty decent results. By the way, you can watch right now how people are working with it, and as a result, making progress. So the robot is quite effective. Alright, let's move on. When it comes to levels in trading, we can actually find them everywhere in the market. This is actually a really great tool for beginners, at the very least to help them understand the price structure, specifically how the price moves and reacts. So here we have a perfect example, really. Look, right here we had a level, right? And we can clearly see that at all of these points, the RSI was dropping down into oversold territory. So in all these cases, we could have opened buy trades here. In the same way, from above, when we entered overbought territory, we could have opened sell trades from there. So these levels, actually, you can use them as a tool, either as a full-fledged strategy or just as an additional tool for extra analysis. So you get it. You want, for example, to trade with the trend, right? Let's say we have a downtrend starting, but you're worried there might be a correction, or the price might catch a reversal. At that moment, you mark the level and realize that from here, we're most likely going to see a reaction. Even if the price goes lower, there will still be at least a 1-minute reaction. So now you know how to work with levels. It's truly a useful tool that every beginner needs. Also, I'll leave all the useful links to our Telegram channel where there's even more training, and to our beloved robot in the description. If you have any questions, send us a direct message. We'll be happy to help you. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and leave a comment about what you think regarding the level. That's it for now. I'll say goodbye and see you in the next videos.